The book of Nehemiah. Nehemiah finds out through a messenger that his homeland is in ruins. Hundreds of years earlier, the Babylonians destroyed the city of Jerusalem. They tore down the temple and walls that protected the city and dragged the people away into captivity. Years went by with the Babylonians in charge until a powerful king in Persia named Cyrus attacked and defeated the Babylonians. As a result, Cyrus allowed the people of Israel to go back and rebuild their temple. Unfortunately, the Israelites once again turned their back and sinned against God. Meanwhile, King Cyrus dies and a new king is put into power. This new king boldly proclaims that there will never be a wall built around the city of Jerusalem again. It appears the Israelites have missed their window of opportunity. Nehemiah is the cupbearer to this king. Cupbearer meaning prime minister, bodyguard, and second in command. Nehemiah hears of his people's plight and his heart breaks. So he takes a risk and asks the king if he can go back and rebuild the walls of Jerusalem. The hand of God was upon Nehemiah, so the king granted his request. And after 5 months, Nehemiah travels to Jerusalem to rebuild the wall. When he gets there, he surveys the situation for 3 days and then makes a speech to the people of Jerusalem.
The Book of Nehemiah. The words of Nehemiah, son of Hakaliah.
In the month of Kislev, in the 20th year, while I was in the citadel of Susa, Hanani, one of my brothers, came from Judah with some other men. And I questioned them about the Jewish remnant that had survived the exile, and also about Jerusalem. They said to me,
"Those who survived the exile and are back in the province are in great trouble and disgrace. The wall of Jerusalem is broken down and its gates have been burned with fire."
When I heard these things, I sat down and wept. For some days I mourned and fasted and prayed before the God of heaven. Then I said, "Lord, the God of heaven, the great and awesome God, who keeps his covenant of love with those who love him and keep his commandments. Let your ear be attentive and your eyes open to hear the prayer your servant is praying before you day and night for your servants, the people of Israel. I confess the sins we Israelites, including myself and my father's family, have committed against you. We have acted very wickedly toward you. We have not obeyed the commands, decrees, and laws you gave your servant Moses. Remember the instruction you gave your servant Moses, saying, 'If you are unfaithful, I will scatter you among the nations. But if you return to me and obey my commands, then even if your exiled people are at the farthest horizon, I will gather them from there and bring them to the place I have chosen as a dwelling for my name. They are your servants and your people, whom you redeemed by your great strength and your mighty hand. Lord, let your ear be attentive to the prayer of this your servant, and to the prayer of your servants who delight in revering your name. Give your servant success today by granting him favor in the presence of this man." I was cupbearer to the king.
Outside the old city walls of Jerusalem here, very important site, because when Nebuchadnezzar and the Babylonians conquered Jerusalem, they sacked the city, destroyed the walls, brought them down to a pile of rubble, destroyed the temple, and led away all the able-bodied people into what's known as exile. They were force-marched all the way around down to Babylon, far from home. There they sat down by the river, by the rivers of Babylon. You may have heard that song from a psalm that speaks about them weeping as they remembered Zion, the city of Jerusalem, now destroyed. Well, fast forward a few decades, and Nehemiah, one of the Israelites, one of the Hebrews, has been given a prominent position of power in Babylon. He hears that these walls are destroyed and he begins to weep. It says in the book of Nehemiah, as soon as I heard these words, I sat down and wept, and I fasted and prayed. And he asked God to help restore the walls. And God basically said, why don't you be the answer to that prayer? To cut a long story short, Nehemiah says, the gracious hand of my God was upon me. He got incredible favor and resources, returned to Jerusalem, and built up these walls. Many of these walls here, you can see, were built in the time of Nehemiah and then later periods of restoration as well. Behind me here, you can just see the dung gate. One of the families said, we'll fix the dung gate. What heroes when you prepare to fix the dung gate. Everyone mucked in, and together they rebuilt the walls of Jerusalem. Most builders struggle to finish on time. Nehemiah and the builders of the wall had such favor, they finished in rapid time. And then along with Ezra, they worked to call God's people who'd been in exile back to the Torah. They celebrated the Passover. They recovered faithfulness to Yahweh here in the city of Jerusalem. Post-exile then, the walls were rebuilt, the temple was rebuilt, the nation was rebuilt. And they began to wait then for the promise of the Messiah who would come and bring ultimate restoration and hope. Nehemiah and the city of Jerusalem.